They called it Oumuamua at first, a ghost in the sky, a fleeting streak that bent the rules and vanished. For years it haunted conferences and coffee rooms. A shape that did not belong, a motion that made equations cry. Scientists argued, journals published, the public forgot, until the night the silence broke. The transmission arrived like a cold hand across an old wound, faint, achingly precise, and impossible. Deep space arrays triangulated a pulse on a frequency no human probe uses, a weave of tones that refused to be random. When engineers cleaned the noise, the pattern held, primes nested like a lock, then bursts that echoed neural waveforms, then fragments that mimicked the Voyager golden record as if played through a foreign mouth. It was not a beacon. It was a conversation replayed in a tongue we had only half invented. By the time the packet reached the inner circle, cryptographers, linguists, astrophysicists sworn to silence, the room smelled of stale coffee and adrenaline. Their screens filled with matrices and spectrograms. Under algorithmic pressure the message peeled itself into layers. One stratum looked mathematical, a recursive, self-referencing prime matrix that unfolded like a fractal, revealing new subkeys each time someone thought they'd solved it. Another layer carried shapes in wave, spirals and spirals, the same spirals carved into cave walls on 5 continents. Still another hummed with imagery, schematic hints of orbital mechanics, maps of empty regions in our own neighborhood, and coordinates that pointed lazy fingers toward a quiet patch of space where Voyager's sensors once blinked. The more they decoded, the less comfortable they felt. Patterns in the signal matched Oumuamua's rotation. The object itself had been the transmitter, using its tumble to modulate pitch and pulse. That suggested intent. That suggested design. And when an independent subroutine in a private lab correlated the packet with infrared traces from a faint, concurrent source, the hair on their arms stood up. A secondary object, heat signature only, shadowing the old trajectory like a moth trailing a candle. Governments reacted the only way institutions know how, by silencing the air. Data gates slammed. Public databases were scrubbed into placeholder blankness. Scientists who'd tweeted wonder the week before went quiet, their feeds reduced to zeros. Leaks slipped anyway, just enough to ignite panic and curiosity in equal measure. Journalists smelled a story and found only closed doors. The world watched a black box around knowledge tighten. But secrecy could not hide the numbers hidden in the noise. Coordinates surfaced, strange and specific, pointing not outward to some distant galaxy but inward, to a wedge of the outer solar system, a blind spot threaded by decades of half-glances from aging probes. The message included timing. The cipher fractal unlocked into a sequence that read like an appointment. Not "come here," but "meet here." The date embedded within? A window already bleeding toward our present. And beyond the rendezvous, the message contained a mirror. When decoded into sensory analogs, parts of the transmission replayed a warped version of humanity's own voice. The golden record's "hello" recast in a strange cadence, as if answered, then rearranged. It was mimicry or recognition. It was as though whatever had listened to our broadcast remembered more than we intended to teach. Theories multiplied. Oumuamua had been a scout, some said, a stealthy drone slipping through systems and taking notes. Others whispered of a retrieval fleet, nodes that collected specimens and beacons, leaving breadcrumbs to mark what they'd found. Some worried the message was a test, an algorithmic gauntlet designed to measure cognitive reach, to see whether a civilization could parse nested self-referential logic and thereby prove its maturity. Among the most unsettling interpretations was the possibility that the packet was recursive by design. Not a static missive but an adaptive algorithm, evolving in response to each attempt at decryption. Each answer provoked a deeper question. Each key opened another lock. It felt less like an invitation and more like a conversation between engineers, one side remote, patient, and practice-hardened across millennia. As the world argued, the old probes kept their neutral vigil. In the silent corridors of mission control, teams rerouted instruments, repositioned arrays, begged for minutes on scopes that are scheduled years in advance. A cache of international observatories prepared for a moment that might rewrite everything. A rendezvous in the dark, a door ajar in an otherwise empty yard of stars. We have never been so small and so loudly noticed. Oumuamua's final transmission did not come with a warning or a manifesto. It came with a puzzle and a coordinate and a quiet, unignorable implication. Someone, somewhere, has been listening to us for long enough to learn how to speak our language back, and how to watch without being seen. The message held up a mirror to our species and asked, in the only way a machine can, whether we are ready to look. On the appointed night, telescopes will point. Antennas will strain. Minds will parse. And all we can do is wait, not for a return call, but for the universe to decide whether we are interlocutors, curiosities, or merely a recorded footnote. The signal hangs in the dark, recursive and patient. The next move is not necessarily ours. But the question remains, louder than numbers on a screen. When someone